The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to our October SugarCRM user group. I'm Deneen Ponarelli, the Marketing Manager for Technology Advisors. And with us today we have our two SugarCRM experts, Justin and Megan. So today's event, if you haven't done a user group before, it's not like a webinar in the terms that it's a more flexible and open discussion. And we hope you feel free to speak up about your questions and curiosities, not just about the topic we're going to start with today, but really about any questions that you have pertaining to sugar. So we'll start the conversation by talking about Sidecar, and then we'll let it transition to any topic you really want to discuss. So in order to do that, you'll just want to type your questions into the chat box, and we will get to them as we go along. So with that, I will hand the floor over to Megan and Justin.
Thank you, Deneen. We'll get started today with what is Sidecar? Well, Sidecar is a solution that Sugar built based on several other open source frameworks and libraries. Sidecar is essentially a client-side MVC or model view controller architecture. It was originally released in Sugar 7.0, and that is where you saw the new user interface that was introduced with Sugar 7. It's greatly improved. We'll look at some of the differences between those two as we move forward. And in case anyone was curious what libraries or open source frameworks Sidecar was built on, those are jQuery, _backbone, Handlebars, Bootstrap, and NBD3. NBD3 are the fancy charts you see in the new version of Sugar. And again, all of these are open source. And why is that important? Excellent question. Because Sugar can continue to use the freely available upgrades to each of these tools to make Sugar better while keeping the cost down. And it's just been a really great way for them to add some of the new functionality we'll see in a second. Because Sugar is now client-side, everything is running on your local laptop or desktop or the browser. Within the browser, Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, etc. So that browser program is now talking back to the Sugar server via the REST API, which was introduced in version 6.6. This REST API is greatly improved over the last two APIs Sugar had, and it conforms to international REST standards, which makes it very easy to integrate with, and we'll see some of those potential integrations in a little bit. Does everybody remember backwards compatible? Although back then in version 6 it was not called backwards compatible. It was just the way Sugar works. So let's take a look at that. If I come in here to my Sugar, we can take a look at the quoting module here, which is still in backwards compatible mode. You can see that in your URL you have a #BWC. The old list views look a lot different. There's no filters. There's this search area. You can do a basic search or an advanced search. And you'll notice when I'm clicking this basic search or advanced search, it kind of redoes the entire screen as we're doing it. Also, if I click the little edit button here, it pops open a whole new window with everything in it for this quote. And if I click on a record, it'll of course take me to it, but it's a pretty basic interface. You just have your detail view up top and then your subpanels down below. So it was very good for the late 2000s, but now we've improved on it. So what are the benefits of Sidecar? We have a richer user experience. That's that new version 7 interface you've seen. And as I'll demonstrate, the interface is now broken up into separate parts. So we can be doing one thing in one part while the system is doing something else in another part, which makes it more of an actual application you're using as opposed to just a website you're looking at. There's also performance increases because now your local computer within the browser is doing most of the work, as opposed to trying to pass a question off to the server, having the server think about that for a while and then send the results to you. Everything's local, so it's faster, and it's much more scalable. You don't need as high-powered server to get the same amount of work done. Sidecar was also written to be very extensible, so developers can add new functionality or modify existing functionality very easily. And finally, it's adaptive/responsive. So if you're looking at Sugar in your browser, it looks good. If you're looking at it on an iPad, it also looks good. If you're looking at it on your phone, it's automatically resizing itself to fit whatever display you're looking at. What do we have for a richer user experience? We have inline editing for list views and subpanels. We have a filter and search on the fly without having to click the search button. We can edit a single field without having to click the edit button. We have fewer full page reloads. And the intelligence panel is a nice little segregated area where we can do things. So let's take a look at some of those. If I jump over here to my Sugar instance, you can see we have a very nice home screen that's greatly improved over the previous one. We can have any number of charts in here, list views that are filtered for records I'm looking for. If I want to configure one of these, I can click the little here, there, click edit. It pops down the drawer. You may notice in the background, we're still on that same page. So this is kind of that segregation of the different areas within Sugar. We're doing one thing, but we're still on the same page we used to be. So I could, for example, remove my next step field from here, click save, and it's redoing that dashlet and only that dashlet. The rest of the page didn't have to reload, which is a lot faster and looks a lot nicer. These charts, again done by the NVD3 technology, are interactive. If I only want to see records that are coming soon, I can easily get to those just by unclicking different items. And again, the out-of-the-box dashlets are also very interactive. I can see planned activities for today / past due, as well as the future, just my records or my team's records, swapping between meetings and calls. So that's a very nice functionality. And all of these dashlets are existing independently from each other. I can switch this dashlet around without affecting any of the others around them. So really cool stuff there. Very interactive. On a list view, for example, my accounts list view, we have similar technology with the intelligence panel over here. I can have charts over here that are interactive, and as I'm editing these, nothing's changing on the left side of the screen. If I were to edit my intelligence panel, add a new dashlet here, let's just add a list view here for fun. I can save that, and again, nothing's changing on the left side of the screen. I can filter in here, find anything that starts with T, and it's doing that without having to reload the screen. Adding new filters just slides down a new area here, so I can get that information out and save my filter very quickly. In addition, I can click the preview button here and see every single piece of history about this record without even having to leave this screen. I can click the little pencil here to edit this record on the fly. And all of that's being done via the REST API, pulling data down, pushing it back up. And of course, I can edit in line now, whereas before I had to load a whole new screen. And finally, I think my favorite part of the new interface is the intelligence panels and these dashlets that can be made smart. For example, here you'll notice I have a dashlet of my active products associated with technology advisors and a dashlet of my quoted products that are associated to technology advisors. You can see here I have 2 active products in my subpanel and 1 that's quoted. And that's because these dashlets can be made smart enough to be linked to the current record you're looking at. So I think that's really cool how they did that. So not only do we have separate parts of the screen, left versus right at a very high level, the right side can know what we're looking at on the left side and be changed based on that. So some really cool functionality they've built right into the system. Again, I mentioned the upgraded interactive charts with NVD3. We now have those smart dashlets. In this screenshot, you can see one opportunities versus open opportunities. So if I have an account that has dozens or even hundreds of opportunities, and I don't want to have to go down to my subpanel and scroll for just the open items, I can simply create a dashlet that's going to show me those 3 records that are open, quickly getting me to the information I want to see. Another example of this would be something built by Proximico, a mapping application that exists in the intelligence panel. I can say I want to see all of the accounts that are within X miles of my current location or a location I choose. I can push the button to list view. That pushes just these records to my list view over here. And then I can select these items and send them a bulk email, add them to a target list, do a mass update to add them to a target list. So it's really cool functionality when you get these different parts of the screen talking to each other. We can have custom layouts. Here's an example of Calidus Cloud CPQ system. They just have a module up here called CPQ Quotes. And you'll notice it has a layout up here. So they've replaced the entire screen and essentially embedded CPQ within it. So not only are you using Sugar, you're using CPQ within it, and those two systems are talking to each other very easily via that same REST API that we talked about earlier. Here's a good example of the REST API. What uses it? Well, the portal uses it. Your base application uses it. We have a program called Starfish ETL that transfers data from just about any CRM or ERP or database back and forth with Sugar. The mobile app leverages it. Custom applications use it. For example, there's a mobile app out here that does mapping, so I can see my route and get driving directions, as well as record meetings as they're completed back into Sugar via that REST API. That's it for an overview of what Sidecar does. If you have any questions, feel free to put those in chat and we'll answer those in a little bit. For now, we'll take a look at what's coming down the pipeline for Sugar.
All right, so the latest releases from Sugar, versions 6.5.24, 6.7.13, 7.5.25, 7.6.22, and 7.7.12 all address the same security vulnerability, so they had to release a patch for each of their supported versions right now. Version 7.7.12 also included some other bug fixes, specifically a major bug fix around global search, as well as one around cron, which runs scheduled jobs that kind of run behind the scenes in your Sugar environment. The other really big news and release from Sugar is the SugarCRM mobile application configuration service, which is quite a mouthful, so they've abbreviated it to MAX. Sugar MAX allows you to create your own branded Sugar mobile application. So you can create your own company version of the SugarCRM mobile app with your own logos, for example, your own color scheme, as well as embedding in the URL of your Sugar environment so that your users don't have to type that into their phone the first time they use the app. And you can then publish either through a mobile device management program or a private app store or a public app store. You can publish your app for your users. Now, this new tool is available only for enterprise and higher, as well as version 6.7 and higher. So if you're using Sugar Professional or a version of 6.5, this would not be available for you at the moment. But it is an exciting new tool, and as Justin's going to explain a little bit more in a few minutes, it's the first step in a really big move Sugar is making around customizability of mobile. We also are expecting some future releases that we know a little bit about that we wanted to share with you. Version 7.7.20 is expected in the next few weeks, and this release should contain a number of bug fixes for various bugs in version 7.7.0 and 7.7.1. So we're expecting to see that very soon. I'm personally very excited about some of the fixes that are supposed to be included in that one, and excited to see those rolled out and available. We also are expecting within the next, I would say the next few months, version 7.8 to become available. Version 7.8 is in beta right now at Sugar and includes a lot of different updates. One that's potentially relevant to the presentation today is that the quotes module is expected to move to Sidecar in this release. So Sugar, as you probably know, slowly updating remaining modules that are in backwards compatibility mode into Sidecar mode. And that is one that, as far as I know, is expected to be in the 7.8 release.
The other item we have is the mobile SDK. We briefly saw this at SugarCon during the developer conference, and it looks like they're essentially just open sourcing the mobile application and then giving you a program that puts a wrapper around it to allow it to easily go into the iOS or Android stores so that then you can release it to your users. So I'm pretty excited about that. That's going into a very limited beta within the next month or two. If you have any questions about the mobile Max or SDK, Megan and I just released a podcast where we covered those in depth at SugarCubeCRMtalk.com.
Or, of course, you can ask them now.
Or you can ask them now.
So just as a reminder, we do have some questions here regarding the Sidecar application or interface, but feel free to ask any SugarCRM related question that you would like, and we will answer it. It doesn't have to be about the Sidecar topic. We just wanted to inform you about that and get the conversation started. And of course, if you have any questions about it, let us know. We do have one here asking which modules are still in BWC mode. What does it mean, and when will that change? So currently, the modules that are still in BWC or backwards compatibility mode are some of the either more complicated or lesser used modules within Sugar. That's going to include things like quotes that Justin showed you, documents, campaigns, contracts, projects, reports, as well as all of the administrator functionality, or most of the administrator functionality, I should say. Some of it has moved to Sidecar, but not most of it yet. Justin, do you want to speak a little bit to what it means and what the differences are? Or not, you can make faces at me.
I don't think you want.
I mean, you already talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, we saw the difference. Backwards compatible, everything happens on the server, so there's less you can do with the screen when you're in the Sidecar framework, or version 7, as some people call it. Everything's, like I said, split up, so you can just do more with the screen. You have more functionality. There's just so much more you can do with it.
I think from the user perspective, the most obvious thing is just that the screens look different. They're the older style screen. They're not going to have all of your wonderful new functionality like the filtering and the intelligence panel and the activity stream that we've become used to seeing within Sugar.
Yeah.
So is Sugar Sidecar something that you can usually just jump into, or would people need a little bit of training on it usually, or you think it's pretty self-explanatory?
A lot of our new customers who launch up on the system, we do a little bit of end-user training. These are the people who have never seen Sugar before, so they're starting with Sugar 7. So end-user training is pretty straightforward because the system is very intuitive. When we have customers who are upgrading from version 6 to version 7, we've done some training for them as well, retraining on Sugar, because the interface has changed so much and there's a lot of new functionality. We really want to make sure they're getting the most out of the system.
Okay, and then we have a question here. You mentioned API. What is that, and why is it important?
The REST API is, I'm not sure what it stands for actually.
I don't know what REST, Application Programming Interface, I believe.
Yeah, Application Programming Interface. Essentially, Sugar moved to a services-oriented architecture. So if we were to jump back to the slide, all of the different parts of the application are talking back to the server via the REST API. So no matter how you're using Sugar, they're all leveraging the same functionality to update, read, create, and delete data from Sugar. So it really standardizes it, and this REST API, again I mentioned, conforms to international standards, so it's very easy for any developer who's never seen Sugar before to start talking to Sugar.
Yeah, I would say one of the ways we see that power really illustrated is with various integrations. Sugar has become very easy, like you said, for people to talk to through code because they use the international standards, so that if you have another system that you want to integrate with Sugar, the REST API is the mechanism that you would use to do that.
Do we have any general SugarCRM questions? It doesn't have to be about Sidecar, about anything having to do with Sugar that you're just curious about. You want to ask our experts, get some more information, some more insights. Give you guys a second on that. Okay, we have a question here. So we're new to Sugar and we've never done an upgrade before. What does that usually entail if we're going to go to this newer version with Sidecar?
So I would say it starts with, the first factor is whether you are hosting Sugar yourselves or whether you're hosted with Sugar on Demand. If you are hosted with Sugar on Demand on their servers, they will handle the upgrade process for you. That you can test an upgrade before it happens in a sandbox and make sure that everything still works the way you're expecting it to, get used to any new features that are there, and then schedule an upgrade date with them so that you know when it's going to happen, and it just usually overnight, walk in the next morning and your Sugar's been upgraded.
So relatively painless situation. All right, we'll give you another couple seconds here if anybody else has any following questions that they want to throw out there. And
while we're waiting, I'll plug our next couple of user groups here. In December, on December 20th, we'll be looking at the latest version of the Outlook plugin, and specifically the sidebar that they've introduced this year, and talking about the wonderful functionality that's available there. In February, we'll be looking at the new customer journey plugin and telling you all about the functionality and features that it has. So you do have to register for each user group individually. So if you aren't signed up for those already, please go ahead and sign up at www.techadv.com/online-sugarcrm-user-group. Same place you signed up today.
Okay, so it looks like we're all wrapped up. I hope we answered everybody's questions. We will send this recording to you within 48 hours of this broadcast, so that if you want to reference it again, you can have access to that. So I want to thank Justin and Megan for being with us today, and I hope that you join us in December when we start our conversation about Outlook plugin. And I hope you have a wonderful afternoon in the meantime.